Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Akhilesh and I will be your host for the session. So on behalf of the Zoho Creator team, I welcome you all to the third episode of Virtual Boardroom, a customer-led webinar series in which leading industry experts and CXOs share their experience with low code. As you all can see, the topic for the session is reimagining people, processes, and operations with the low code solutions. So a few points to keep in mind through the session. All attendees will be on mute. On your left side panel, you can see a questions tab. Please use the tab on your panel to ask your questions during the Q&A session, which will be at the end of the session. We'll have some polls that will pop up during the session, and we request your active participation in them. And finally, a recording of the session will be sent to all attendees. So without further delay, here's the agenda for the session. We'll have a quick introduction of our speaker. Then I'll be touching upon the challenges faced by enterprises and also on what's low code and citizen development so that it give you a better understanding before Rajiv takes over. Today, we have with us Rajiv Maheshwari, the CEO of Anand and Anand, one of India's oldest and biggest intellectual property law firms. They advise some of the world's leading companies and institutions on matters relating to the protection of IP. The firm currently employs over 400 people, including over 100 attorneys and engineers, with a presence in almost all of major cities in India, like New Delhi, Noida, Chennai, and Mumbai. In addition to being recognized for leadership in IP or intellectual property, Anand and Anand has also won the Financial Times Innovative Lawyers Award for Data and Technology across the Asia Pacific region. And this year, they were a recipient of Zoho Creator Awards for Tech Innovation. Rajiv, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for being part of the session and keeping aside time for us in between your busy schedule. Today, Rajiv will be taking us through Anand and Anand's journey to the cloud with Zoho Creator and how they initiated an organization-wide citizen development drill starting from the CEO's office. And not every day do you get to see the CEO of a company running digital transformation initiatives in an organization. So he'll be showcasing some parts of the custom applications he built on Creator that not only changed the what you call the technological landscape at Anand and Anand, but also improved the mental well-being of the employees. So before we get into the session, let's have a quick poll to understand the background of our audience. A poll will pop up on your screen. We'll have about 15 to 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Please do participate in them. All right, we'll just have 5 more seconds. So around 41% of our attendees are from a mix of both IT and non-IT, which is great considering that's what we have in store for the session. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about low code, its growing popularity, and of course, I'll introduce you to our low code platform, Zoho Creator. Whenever we talk to businesses, users, and our customers to understand their problems and requirements, these are some of the most common challenges they face. The IT team that's in charge of bringing tech innovation is already occupied with support and maintenance. That's what they say, which leads to an increase in demand. And new technologies, for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning, those were unheard of a decade ago. And now they're the most significant part of the innovation that's happening. And let's be honest, neither the talent nor the technologies come cheap. All of this on top of the times we're in and the surging demand for remote work, many organizations are looking for solutions that are affordable and have a short learning curve. That's where low code comes into the picture. Low code platforms are they use simple logic and allow users to build apps visually and without having to write chunks of code. Why is its popularity skyrocketing is a question among all of you. And the reason is it democratizes innovation. As the name suggests, it means giving the right affordable tool to the person in need. In short, technology should be accessible to everyone. Any person with any level of knowledge should be able to create a solution to meet his or her need. And low code platforms have their backend configured from compilers to interpreters to data privacy and security. Everything is covered. So all you need is to sign up for the service and avail. And rightfully so, Analyst firms like Gartner predict the low code market to hit around $14 billion by the end of 2021. And it's not going to stop there. It's been a rise year over year. So let me introduce you to our low code platform, which is Zoho Creator. It's part of the larger business suite, Zoho Business Suite, and Creator alone serves more than 60 million users worldwide. And at Creator, we have always worked towards a single purpose, enabling problem solvers to build business solutions that make a difference. It doesn't matter if you're a non developer or a citizen developer or a professional developer. At the end of the day, the need has to be addressed. So, equipped with features like drag and drop interface, the work is as simple as ever. So, as you can see on the screen, this is the traditional way of building a form based application. This is what it took. And right now, this is all you need to do. And finally, build once, use anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's a PC or a tab or an iOS phone or an Android phone. The aim is to build once and deploy your application on any platform or device of your choice. So before handing over to Rajiv, let's quickly touch upon a trend that's gaining popularity in enterprises and in the technology sector as a whole. This is called citizen development. So, citizen development is a trend where companies encourage employees with little or no code app building expertise to build applications using such platforms. And these employees or people in general who avail these platforms are called citizen developers. And in short, citizen developers grew out of a twofold problem: a shortage of skilled programmers and an increasing hunger for mobile apps. So that gives rise to the question, why are citizen developers important? So in this era with tighter budgets and an uncertain future, companies have shifted to remote work on a complete note. So this digital transformation is more relevant than ever with the need for essential applications to manage virtual teams, access information, making sure the workforce stays productive, and most importantly, the data is secure. So, why should organizations promote citizen development? Frankly speaking, purchasing off the shelf software or depending entirely on the IT team for an application may not be feasible for a lot of businesses. And predominantly, this might come from a financial point of view or from a wor- workforce point of view. So, that's why empowering your existing workforce to develop application is crucial for digitization. And from low code to citizen development, Anand and Anand is a testament to all of this. So, without further delay, let's hear from the CEO, who's also a citizen developer himself. So, thank you everyone for your time. I'll be handing over to Rajiv.
Thanks, Akhilesh, and good morning to everybody from the Americas. Good afternoon to people from Europe, and good evening to people from Asia. Thanks, Akhilesh, for setting the context about what citizen developer and citizen development is, and the entire landscape of low code or even in some cases no code application development. It's been a complete paradigm shift, and just by a way of context, I've been involved in the traditional monolithic ERP implementations, which have been massive projects running over multiple years, from more than 20 years ago. And when I started off doing that in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, I could have never imagined that there will be a time, not in the too distant a future, where we would be, where business people and the functional people would be developing applications completely on their own. So, without further ado, let me take you through our journey of low code development on the Zoho platform. And what I would want to do is essentially talk about the softer aspects first before we get into some of the more technical issues or some of the demonstration of what we've built, because one of the things that is important to bear in mind is that the journey over the last 16 months has been completely unprecedented. And even though the pandemic is kind of in different stages in different parts of the world, and there is a lot of uncertainty about what the future of work will be, the fact of the matter is that the new normal is here to stay. And with the new normal, the new development paradigms are also here to stay. And of course, I'll not repeat what Akhilesh has said about the the role of low code in the new paradigm and in the new normal, which of course Gartner, Forrester, all these other big analysts have also been mentioning. So with that, let me just share a few slides with you. I hope my screen is visible and you can see them in slideshow mode. So, what I will be essentially talking about is laying the foundation of our journey, because that's most important. And whether you are from the business side or from the IT side, I think it's really important to lay down the right foundation, which I must say, looking back in hindsight on my experiences of both low code development as well as traditional development by the IT workforce, the foundation has to be laid slightly differently in the case of low code development, and that's very important to bear in mind. And then we talk about how we built it up, essentially focusing on the three main pillars of implementation, which I would attribute in to a low code development environment. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about how we went about deploying it and what was our journey like and what did it achieve for us. Coming to the foundation itself, I think the first and foremost thing that I would want to talk about is really the portion at the bottom here, which is the mindset. And the reason why I could not emphasize mindset enough is because of two reasons. One is, of course, the pandemic within which we started implementing the low code systems, which is the Zoho Creator. But even had the pandemic not been there, I think it's a big change in mindset for functional people, for the business users, to really have that self belief in themselves that they can do something like this. And traditionally, whatever has been done by high flying software engineers or specialists or geeks or techies is something that could be essentially presented in such a way that even a functional user or a business user with absolutely no programming technology, system development or app development experience could do it. So that's the big chunk there in terms of mindset. The paradigm shift, of course, in terms of citizen development is an industry-wide phenomena. Akhilesh has already spoken about it. And the third and the most useful piece of laying the foundation is really about the business orientation, which has two sides to it. One is how much time, money, costs, capital are you investing into it, and what is the return that you're getting out of it. And historically, large scale IT projects have always been questioned in terms of their business case, either because they do not deliver the promised results or because there is a massive cost, time, or other sort of overruns in terms of the project. So that's the other unique feature about how citizen development pans out, and I'll speak a little bit about that as well. But first, let me get into the mindset. Particularly because of the pandemic, what we really felt initially, which is about the March to June sort of time frame, when the pandemic was settling in and people were just about beginning to understand the gravity of what was really happening in the world out there. What we essentially went and told our team is that look at this as an opportunity rather than as a challenge. And in order to kind of drive home that change in mindset, we took the metaphor from Formula One, which is a pit stop, as you can see on the image on the slide. And what we were essentially able to tell and kind of change the way our people looked at the pandemic period was that just as in a Formula One race where you are running the race of your lives, running lap after lap continuously for about 60 to 75 minutes, you do have those pit stops in between, maybe for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or thereabouts, which is a very small fraction of the entire Formula One race, where you are using all your energy to do the required maintenance so that your car is in good shape for running the race of your life ahead of you. Uh, just the same way, if you look at the pandemic, at least then we did not know how long it is going to last. But we just took a thumb rule of, say, 6 months in the lifespan of 60 to 70 years. And we said that if we keep running the race of our lives as we have been doing, it's a good idea to take a sort of a pit stop, so to speak, from the race of our lives, and use that pit stop to kind of expand on the pit stop acronym, to look at our processes, information and data architectures, to look at our technology platforms, to align it with our business strategy, and then of course to retrain and reskill our people so that we are in line with the new tech environment, and run our operations accordingly, so that we have motivated people at the end of the day. Akhilesh spoke about the fact that we won the Tech Innovator Award from Zoho Creator. In fact, been one of the most unique projects which has won the Tech Innovator Award on the one side, and on the other side, Financial Times this year has recognized us for innovation on the people side. So it is not very often that the same project has two dimensions, one on the tech side and the other on the people side, both of which have won awards or recognitions or laurels at different in different forums, and that too internationally. So that's really been pivotal, and which is why I really wanted to start with the mindset issue. It's not necessary that every one of you who goes about implementing tech projects or any large scale organizational change for that matter will have a similar sort of situation. Pit stop is what worked for us. Maybe some other metaphor or some other mindset change is required in your particular organizational situation. So it would really help if you could take a step back and think about what is the mindset change that you need in order for technology to be successful. In my experience, what I've seen is that technology is typically always there and it is around, but it is the user adoption which is the key, and which is really the biggest hindrance to achieving and realizing the business case. It's not so much that the tech platform or the configuration, etc., which is at fault. It's really the adoption. And then just putting some color to whatever Akhilesh spoke about citizen developer. These are just some images from our training meetings and brainstorming meetings while we were implementing Zoho Creator. And as you can see from the image, these are all people who are drawn from business functions with absolutely no technical background in our teams. A few couple of them are from HR, one of them is from accounts, one of them is from the admin team, one of them runs projects and MIS and analytics for us. So none of them in fact were from the technology background. uh, Only one of them had experience of a little bit of programming, not in terms of professional background, but again as part of our endeavors to do citizen data science, which is another citizen sort of initiative where we've really gone about democratizing the applications and the development of data science and artificial intelligence in our firm. So we are not new to the concept of citizen development, but it's not been done on such a wide scale involving so many different functions as was done as part of the Zoho Creator implementation. So that's really been the team, and that symbolizes the citizen developer movement. And in case you're wondering, if there was any IT involvement, the big surprise is that even though we have a very strong and robust IT team in-house in our organization, that was not part of this citizen development initiative. As I think Akhilesh mentioned, one of the benefits of citizen development is that the core IT resources, people who have programming background, etc., they can really focus on developing, maintaining, and managing other applications, the legacy applications that you may be having, which of course do necessarily need technical skills. So that's been on the citizen development front. And then the third thing is, of course, the business orientation. I won't spend too much time on this because this can be a fairly complex thing to get into. But the short point here is this is a framework that I've developed to kind of drive home the point that while we talk about the business case and really realizing that from our systems development, we really have to start with the business purpose. And while implementing it, we have to start from the data layer, which is often garbage because it's not cleaned up, and all of the quality issues that you have with data, or the missing information, or information not being clean or relevant or what have you. So as you start implementing it from the right hand side back to the left hand side, you have to start keeping the business purpose in mind. And only when you start designing applications that achieve the business purpose or the business goals, only that should essentially drive what skills are required in the team and what knowledge is required, rather than anything else, rather than the availability heuristic, where people are essentially learning whatever is available out there. Rather than that, the approach that we have taken is, this is what we need to achieve as a business, this is the app we need to design, hence these are the skills and the knowledge that we need to gain. And in order to build these applications, this is the information that we need to kind of ingest from all the data that we have out there. So that's a fairly commonsensical and logical approach if you look at it. But it's not surprising how many times businesses do not follow this simple logic and journey. So that's a little bit of a background in terms of laying the foundation. Before I get into talking about how we built it up and how the applications were designed and what were the three pillars, I would just like to show you guys a little bit of some screens from whatever we've implemented, so that you can get a flavor of what I'm talking about. And then we'll get into uh, essentially describing how we went up building those systems and applications. So I'll just talk about one of them to give you a perspective, and we'll of course, if there are more questions, we can take them in the question answer session. But this is essentially an application that we built along the HR side. So what we've done is we've taken the entire the recruitment cycle, right from application down to the offer stage and even onboarding and beyond, into the entire employee engagement life cycle. But I will just talk about the application side on the recruitment side right now. So as you can see, this is a fairly straightforward application form which people fill up. I'm not going to go through all the fields, but this is what applicants fill up. What also happens in our case is a lot of people may not be applying on the standard form that we have. So we created another uh, form here called People Profiler. So what you see here with all these fields here is essentially the form. Of course, if you have more technical questions about all these features, the Zoho Creator team is here and you can ask questions in the panel. But this is the basic building block. And as Akhilesh was mentioning, each of these fields here, whenever you make an entry here, it automatically goes and updates the database. So as users or as citizen developers, we really don't need to do anything except construct these forms. So what we did was designed our entire workflow, which was a far more complex exercise than we imagined. And the reason for that complexity was that instead of aping the processes that we had in our legacy systems in the old way of working, we while we were looking at the features of Zoho Creator, we realized that we could pretty much build anything. Just like a child starts playing with Lego blocks and first tries to build models based on the manual or the standard models that are there, and tries to copy them. Very soon the child realizes that with these Lego blocks you can pretty much make anything that your heart desires. Just the same way, I think our super users, the name that we'd given for our citizen developers, they realized that these blocks could be very, very powerful, and we could build pretty much anything that really our business needed. With that in mind, what we did was we created a comprehensive data architecture and a process flow which covered the entire cycle. One is the case where the applicants are applying directly. The other is where applications are being received from other sources, which in the legacy systems were difficult to manage because they were not part of the same system. So here we created a form where we could have that information coming in. And then the beautiful part was the candidate tracker, where we were able to get the information from both the sources, the online source as well as the offline source, which of course we fed into the system. And both those kind of converged into the candidate tracker. And this was also very helpful to us because it helped, for the first time in our history, it helped us track the candidate applications no matter how many times they applied, without doing any manual effort at all. And this was a big victory, and it was like the aha moment for our HR team, because without doing any manual effort, everything just converged and fell into place. And not only that, as you can see from here, we had the complete application history, all the details of however many times the candidate has been shortlisted for a particular position, however many times the interview has been conducted, and the results thereof, right down to the offer details. So what you see here is really only the bare form. Unfortunately, obviously, I can't show you the real data, but all of this is essentially coming through various other forms, which are the application form, which you've already seen. Uh, there is one form similarly for shortlisting, another one for interview, another one for rolling offers. So this is the complete candidate lifecycle view that we have at the tip of our fingers. And not only that, I think from a stakeholder standpoint, the other big stakeholder apart from the candidates is really the requisitioner who's requisitioning for the jobs. So in that case, what we did was we built a complete cycle to track all the manpower requisitions, which can be known by different names in different organizations. So all the manpower requisitions that would come again had a similar view, which again we got for the first time in a seamless and automated manner, where it's the mirror image of what you see for the applicant. So for each and every manpower acquisition, you could see the details of everybody who's been shortlisted, all the interviews that have happened, all the offers that have been rolled out, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, the same information which was coming in through the various forms fed in both places, both to the candidate tracker as well as the manpower requisition tracker. So whether we are talking to a candidate or whether we are talking to the HR team is talking to an internal person who's requisitioned the job, we we know exactly what is the status of shortlisting, of interviews, of offer rollouts, etc. And everything is just available at on the fingertips. And then, of course, we had more details, but I won't go into the details of each one of these. This is the interview information sheet, so we kind of have all the information that we needed. And then, as you can see, some more forms and all of that. So that, in a nutshell, is the complete process which was mapped essentially using these three pillars as I spoke about, which is the people pillar, the process pillar, and the data pillar. After laying down the foundation of the mindset and the citizen development paradigm shift and the business orientation, once we started building the application, these are the three pillars that we essentially relied on. And I will talk a little bit about each one of these three pillars in the context of our journey. And since you've already seen one application that, or one process that was running, the application had other processes as well, but I just spoke about one. We'll see what it entailed. When it comes to people, essentially, I would like to divide the discussion into two aspects. One is the standard left-brained, the technical skills, the programmers kind of that are associated with the left-brained uh, environment and setup. So that is normally what we first think of when it comes to system development and people, right? So we need to essentially have technical skills imparted to the users. They need to know how to do process mapping. They need to know how to configure processes. They need to understand what a workflow is. They need to maybe able to map the process design onto the workflow, put it onto the system, get into the database and other things, and all of that, which of course we didn't need to do in the case of uh, uh, since we had the benefit of a low code platform. But essentially, those are the kind of things that we went about doing. And it was really a fairly seamless experience once the mindset aspects were taken care of, because there are both business users or functional training that Zoho Creator provided to our business users, as well as technical training. So out of all the super users, some of them took the business user training or the functional training, some of them took the technical training, and they got skills to even do some rudimentary programming in the programming or the scripting language that Zoho Creator uses at the back end. It's called Deluge. So we did all of that. We were very well equipped. And that is how we went about building all of these applications and systems. And the beauty is that once people started building basic applications, the way we try to instill confidence in the people is really build some very basic and simplistic uh, you know workflow tracking apps, task tracking apps sort of things, which are very very easy to build up. You can build them up in a matter of hours. It doesn't even take days. And that gave people a lot of confidence because they were able to use this in their day-to-day lives, and it helped them have control over their functions. And that is how we managed to move on to doing more complex things that we were set to do. So that's the left brain part. But more interestingly, as I was giving you the example of the Lego blocks, what really this did was it opened our minds to the possibilities that could exist and the things that we could create given whatever we had at our disposal, right? And the image that you see, and you will find many more details in the Anand and Anand case study that is also there in the handout in the left panel of your screen right now. So if you go into that, you can at leisure see the case study that Zoho Creator had published on us. One of the things they highlighted was, out of the many things that we've done using Zoho Creator, was this, that in the Festival of Lights, which is the festival of Diwali, the primary festival celebrated in India, uh, the team was obviously going through a fairly low phase in terms of morale because we were all homebound, and in the first wave at least, it was peaking at the time of the festival, and we were certainly not together, and there was devastation all around. But what our team was able to do was use the Zoho Creator platform uh, as an event management app. And we created a complete event management app and got our people to submit entries. So we had video functionalities where the app was able to take record, where the app was able to give the functionality for users to record their own videos, upload it. Then we had a voting system. So we created another set of forms where people could come in and vote on their favorite contestant. And then we created another dashboard, which is what you see on your screen right now. This is essentially a dashboard that was created using Zoho Creator. And on this, they could essentially view all the entries. So that way, they were able to kind of take a sneak peek into the talent and skills of not just other team members, but also their family members and all of that. So it gave a very feel good sort of factor. And all this, as I mentioned earlier, was done completely in house by our super users with no external involvement at all. And this was the equivalent of creating a professional event management app, which was done just using Zoho Creator and nothing else at all. So that's again a shining example of what technology can do, as well as what the creative mind can do. And what really this helped us do is unleash the creativity within. And certainly when you are at your creative best, and when you are developing and designing things both from a business perspective as well as from an entertainment perspective, in this case, uh, obviously it will have a beneficial impact on the morale of the team. And that's why we keep saying that it's not just an innovation on the tech side, it's also an innovation on the people side. Then moving on from people to the second pillar of process, what you saw just now in the little bit of demo of the screens that I was able to show to you was a good example of people having the freedom to design. And even though design thinking is a rage these days, and this jargon has been doing the rounds for the last 5 odd years, essentially what our team members did without really knowing the jargon behind it was design thinking at its best. Because because of three reasons. One is, of course, the functional users themselves were the developers. So in a design thinking environment, essentially the person who's designing the system would be putting themselves in the shoes of the functional users. And in this case, the functional users were the designers themselves. So naturally, they didn't copy whatever was there in the legacy systems. They really created a new design from scratch based on what they needed. So it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy or a self-designing philosophy. The other two reasons are really for the others, for the external stakeholders. One is, as I showed you, the tracking the entire life cycle from an applicant standpoint, and the third one is tracking the entire life cycle from the requisitioner or the person who's requisitioned or who needs candidates to be recruited. So from that standpoint, so that is essentially what we were able to do. The other thing is, in our even though we are a services organization and uh, we do all our work digitally, we still have some processes where paper needs to move around, documents need to move around, because we are a law firm and we were concerned, obviously in the pandemic, that people moving around too much is putting us at risk, putting as in our people at risk, and also obviously putting the operations at risk. So we also use the Zoho Creator platform. Uh, One of the features which allowed location tracking, and this also brings me to another point, that if you see the screen here, this is only a mock app. I've just created a copy to show you a demo. Essentially, the form has a feature where you could do location tracking. So if somebody is accessing the application from Noida, which is a place near Delhi in India, or whether one of our team members who's working remotely from Manipur in a place called Tamenglong, which is a very, very remote area, as you can see here, the system is able to track the location and capture the location. And in this case, as you can see, this is essentially far away from where we are in Delhi, in a place which is bordering Burma, Bangladesh, and near China, and we are fairly far off. If you can see, we are in fact nowhere in the frame. I think I've zoomed out, zoomed in quite a bit. So anyway, that's the point. It's about a couple of thousand kilometers away in a remote area. So uh, we of course didn't use it for that. We essentially used it for tracking the people to ensure that our people are safe during the pandemic. So that's how the digital platform can even meet the physical needs in terms of location tracking. And the way it is designed, of course, based on your use case, you can configure it to kind of interface with any other systems as well. And the third pillar that I really want to speak about is the data pillar. So I've spoken about the people side and the process side. I think the big thing is really about the quality as well as the quantity of data. I'll speak about quantity first because that's less of an intuitive thing. So in terms of quantity, we handle fairly large volumes, pretty much the highest of anybody in our industry, in our fraternity. Our master data volume itself is running into more than a couple of 100,000 records, and our invoices and so that is only the master data. Of course, our transactional data volumes are much, much higher than this, as you could imagine. So all of this works seamlessly in the cloud, even when people are working in remote locations with poor internet connectivity or poor home infrastructure. It works well on mobile as well as on computers, whatever maybe the devices people are using. And that was a critical thing for us. And uh, of course, we spoke to Zoho Creator since this was a big apprehension for us, given that we were used to working on the on-prem or the on-premise systems, where the speeds were obviously instantaneous. But what we've heard from users reporting is that the infrastructure and everything works absolutely fine. The other thing which I really want to emphasize upon is quality of the data. So there again, we were pleasantly surprised by a few neat features within the Zoho Creator app, which really helped us do some unplanned data cleanup. So even though, and I'm sure this happens with everybody, even though the users felt that the data was absolutely clean and ready to be uploaded, when we imported the data into Zoho Creator app, they have some inbuilt AI tools which essentially gave us pointers into where the data is not clean, where there could be potential duplicates, whether we should be merging some categories or changing some data labels or things of that nature. So those are fairly trivial things from an overall project management standpoint. But as I like to say, cleanliness is next to godliness when it comes to data, and that is extremely important for from the perspective of all future initiatives, whether it is transaction processing, whether it is reporting of data, taking business decisions based on the information that you have, or even enforcing controls which are based on certain data parameters that are there in your master data or in your transactional data sets. And of course, since I'm talking about AI, if the data is not clean and if you feed it into AI or ML models, then disastrous consequences can follow. So, to cut a long story short, the platform also helped us not just do data migration, which again, based on our historical experiences, at least the traditional IT system developments, we would have imagined that we would need a separate data track where people create templates and data uploaders, and you have those ETLs and those massive data projects that need to be undertaken. Here we were in for a pleasant surprise, because all you need to do is just clean your data, put it up in an Excel sheet, and then you can just import it in one shot. And even if you made mistakes, the system kind of intelligently tells you the potential mistakes that you could have made, of course, of a certain kind. You've seen one or two examples of some dashboards, but here are one or two more. This is I blurred out all the factual information, but all I wanted to show you is that you have things like the donut chart, the pie charts. If you need to track some numbers, you can keep them here. This is the calendar view where you can see activities happening on a particular calendar view, which could be monthly, weekly, daily. You could have multiple calendar views in your dashboard, and this is just one example. There is another example of some other sort of more conventional bar charts and pie charts along with the calendar view. These things are all very easily customizable. They are just drag and drop, and anything that you need to do in terms of controlling what data goes into each of these dashboards, what kind of widgets or what kind of charts go into it, whether you want to see a list view. You can even make edits to your data if you want to allow the users to make edits or do transactions from your dashboard itself, so that you don't have to go to two or three or four different places. So that way, essentially, whatever you need it from the user standpoint, from the manager standpoint, or from the top management standpoint, you can pretty much create as many dashboards as you want, depending on the target audience. So that is about the three pillars that I just wanted to speak about. Uh, you can, of course, the situations may vary in your different organizations, but this is essentially how we have gone about implementing Zoho Creator in our organization. And of course, I've given you my perspective, but I think it's since we are talking about citizen development, I think it's going to be very useful if I show you what our citizen developers have to say.
Zoho Creator, it's not just an app, I think it's a playground for non-technical persons just like me. Especially with its low-code skills requirement, it literally proves that even non-techies can also do it. Its super friendly function and ease of deployment made me believe that an ordinary person can also do extraordinary things.
Zoho Creator has given us the platform to streamline and automate our existing processes in a hassle-free yet super efficient manner. It has been an amazing creative learning experience for me. By using this low-code app, we can easily not just see a big difference in the efficiency of processes in our team, but also witnessed enhanced productivity.
Playing around with data with very less programming, and even had inbuilt AI-based tools for data cleaning, which otherwise takes a lot of time. Secondly, it gave me much deeper insight into working for other functions in the organization.
Well, this app is very much flexible, customizable, and easy to use. We can easily monitor a business workflow and can handle data management as this app is mobile friendly and can be accessible from anywhere, which even doesn't need a computer system.
When I moved to Tamenglong district in Manipur, I knew the challenges I would face to effectively do my work. The main challenge being internet connectivity. I was apprehensive whether I would be able to deliver results while using the platform due to this poor infrastructure. But I was in for a surprise. I was not only able to work seamlessly, but I was able to upgrade myself and learn new skills.
Right. So this is essentially I was talking about the three pillars. Let me just take it back from there. And then this is essentially the journey of what we ended up doing. And once I've spoken about it, I think I want to take you back to the stage where we were really thinking about what to do and how to go about our journey, because I'm sure a lot of people on this call will be and in that stage too. So this is really where we started off with. These were the needs of the new normal that we'd identified. I'm sure you will identify with a lot of these. Even right now, what we wanted was something obviously at low cost, because cash flows were impacted. There was no question of investing any capital or investing huge amounts in software development projects. We wanted something to be done very, very quickly with the speed of light, and everything was required as of yesterday. Something that worked across all devices, platforms, mobile, laptops, every tablets, what have you. Particularly in our country, poor home infrastructure is a reality. We needed to take that into account. Remote implementation was actually a very big challenge, because these sort of system development projects are typically done in uh, boardrooms or conference rooms, or where people come in and huddle together, and the system guys comes and sits with the functional team members and all of that. So since this was based on the citizen development concept, the remote implementation was far easier than it would have otherwise been. Of course, needless to say, we needed all the functionalities, we needed all the flexibility, and we wanted to do all this without any coding or programming knowledge. So that is essentially where we were. And even though we've gone ahead and created so much on Zoho Creator, that's not how we really started off in the month of March, when the lockdown happened. We were that time working on premise, or on prem as we know it, and we were using VPNs and other mechanisms to dial into, or to securely access our office servers while working remotely. From there, what we really started off doing was the first step of keeping our documents and using the basic office automation tools, using the SaaS models. And in the case of Zoho, they have a product called Zoho Work Drive, where we kept our documents. We found collaborative working very easy, and that was where we started getting comfortable with the cloud. We kept, then we started using it more as a document management system, rather than just an ad hoc office automation toolkit for collaboration. And from there, we said, okay, now let us take the next step and see if we can map our workflow, map our processes in the Zoho ecosystem. So we were, apart from Zoho, we were looking at other products, but within the Zoho ecosystem, at that point in time, there were these two products: Orchestly, which is essentially for mapping processes and running the processes. I think it's got a different name now; it's been rechristened. And then there was, of course, Zoho Creator, which we implemented both of these to see where we end up. And the advantage of Zoho Creator obviously was the robust integration of the database layer, uh, which was our key requirement, given the fact that we were dealing with hundreds and thousands of master data records. So we kind of moved further ahead on our creator journey. We built custom applications. As I mentioned earlier, we built some very simplistic applications to start off with, because none of us were professional developers. And once we had the confidence, once we started using those simple task management kind of applications. We then went ahead, built some of the functional applications, and that led, from one application to another. And I think the big thing that started happening after that was the cross-functional applications started getting developed, and that was a game changer because, quite ironically, even though the team was working remotely, there was much more cross-functional and cross-departmental integration and seamlessness of the working of the processes in a remote environment as compared to the situation where people were sitting next to each other or in rooms next to each other while they were working in office. That's quite counterintuitive, but that is exactly how it happened. And I mean, I couldn't unfortunately show you the audio track of the video, but one of the super users there was essentially saying that they were able to understand the working of other functional departments of the organization much better, even though we were working remotely post the pandemic. So that's again because of the way we designed these applications and built cross-functional applications. And you've already seen some examples of dashboards that were created. So those were, of course, they came in much later. And the creative use cases, of course, came around November when we had the festival. And then, of course, we started kind of playing around more and more as we got comfortable. And now, once we've done all of this, we are taking it to other parts of our businesses and scaling up the usage and increasing the deployment of the Zoho Creator platform. So that's really been our deployment story. And in terms of the benefits, I think it's delivered whatever was promised. I think all the things that Akhilesh mentioned in the beginning about the general attributes or aspects of the benefits of citizen development is what we've realized. A couple of things that I would certainly like to add is around the fact that the team was motivated, and the user experience, at least for the internal users, the internal stakeholders, whoever is using the app, has been absolutely exceptional, both from the perspective of convenience as well as from a user experience or the from a design perspective. And of course, the device agnostic nature certainly helps. It's helped us improve our processes, kind of redesign it the way we want without really technology coming in the way. In terms of business and the commercial side, the big thing was capex avoidance, quick implementation, because we ended up uh, implementing things pretty much at the speed of thought. Applications would take not more than days for simple applications. For more complex application, the kind of things that I showed you earlier, that entire design was essentially done and implemented in a month's time. That's all it took. Of course, we did have a good support from the Zoho Creator team, so they knew our situation, that we spoke to them. We said, we do not have the benefit of having the technical resources on the team. So they did give us the benefit of having access to those technical resources from Zoho Creator. So one, of course, they trained our team members, and the secondly, whenever we had doubts, we would go to them. They had even offered us to make some of the applications from their side, and even though we had that on call, we did not really avail of it, because at least I wanted the users to be more hands-on and to be able to learn how to fish rather than giving them a fish, because that's a skill which they will have for life. And in hindsight, that was the best decision that we took. We used Zoho resources to really learn, and then we went about developing on our own. And of course, I won't get into each of the business results, but pretty much every process we implemented it, we got most of the business results that we were expecting and that were desired. And certainly, I've spoken about the fact that these projects were recognized well, and that again led to motivation of the team and other benefits to the organization. So with that, I think Akhilesh, I would like to hand it back to you if there is anything, any question that you want.
So we have a huge pool of knowledge. We have a third member on the panel, JD from the product pre-sales engineering team. So whatever questions you have, please use the questions tab on your left side. If you have business related questions, you can, Rajiv is available. If you want product related queries, we have JD who will be answering your questions. So Rajiv, the first question is from Francisco. How did Zoho allow the people to upload resume on the Anand and Anand company website? There can be n number of people using the websites and uploading their resume. So can you please help?
Right. So the way to do it is by, of course, you create a form which you just saw. That form can be embedded anywhere on any website, and it can also be given as a link to people. So one of the forms that you saw, the interview information sheet, for example, that we don't have on our website, we give the link only to privately to the candidates who are coming in for the interview, virtually or physically. So those are the two methods in which we can use it. And the team internally can also, anybody who has a login, user login, not in this case, but in other cases, can also enter the data into the form by logging into Zoho Creator. So you have essentially these three methods of data entry into these forms, all of which essentially go and feed back into the same database, right? So it does not matter whether the same form is being used by a user who has a Zoho Creator login or somebody who has a private link, where essentially just it will open up on a browser, or the third option is where you embed it into a website. So all three options you have, and you can choose whichever option you want, and it will all go back and update the same database. I hope that answers your question.
Another one is again for you, Rajiv. So how long did it take for the entire team to get used to Creator and say for the entire company to be on the cloud? And how did you adjust in the transition period from going from I think
Mhm.
from legacy to the cloud?
Right. So that answer is a bit convoluted for us. And if you go back to the slide that I showed you about our deployment approach, I think the entire process where we started working with Zoho WorkDrive, even though technically it was not Zoho Creator, I would say was a part of people getting familiar with the Zoho ecosystem, or SaaS based or PaaS based or whatever cloud based applications. Because before that, people were, in our case, as far as office work was concerned, we were only doing it on-prem systems, right? So it was a big change. Uh, Specifically talking about Zoho Creator, it did not take us much time because we had already become familiar with Zoho WorkDrive. We had become familiar with the Zoho Office Suite. We had been familiar with Zoho Click, which is the chat tool. We had in fact also done Orchestly before we had moved on to Zoho Creator. So it might come as a shock to you, and that is why I'm giving so much of a preface to the answer, because this sort of timeline may not be replicable in other environments. But once all of this happened, then for people to get familiar with Zoho Creator, start building applications and start using it, all this was done in a couple of months, not more than that. And once they got familiar in the first month after training, then they started building, I wouldn't say apps, but they started building processes and configuring processes all within a matter of days. It wasn't like, nothing ever took us more than a month to develop from start to end.
All right. JD, the next question is based on IT governance. So Rajesh has a question regarding the GDPR and compliance issues. So is it out of IT governance?
Uh, Hello, can you hear me? Hey, Akhilesh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So we do follow GDPR regulations. I have a link posted in chat. Can you let me quickly check if I can find that question there? Can you tell me who the question is from?
It's from Rajesh.
Okay. Uh, So we do also have a compliance documentation regarding how the data is stored and who is the owner of that data. So again, that would be in depth if I drop that link. So let me do that as well.
Sure.
So I'm posting it for everyone. And in simple sense, we will store the data, but then the ownership of the data is the owner of the account, or in this case, the organization that hosts the application. So they will own the data, we will host it on their behalf. And
Sure.
again, the rest of the data can be found in those links.
Super. Another question is to Rajiv. So, did you integrate Creator with Zoho Desk or CRM? If not, are you planning to?
No, the kind of applications we've built do not have that sort of use case. So, which is why we've not integrated. However, when it comes to CRM, we are essentially using the CRM functionalities in our legacy ERP system, and we are looking at ways and means to kind of use Zoho more aggressively for more of our business processes. This is, of course, been just the starting point, and we've been adding more and more processes as we've moved along. So it still remains to be seen whether we use Zoho CRM or whether we kind of use Zoho Creator functionalities to replicate the Zoho CRM functionalities within Zoho Creator itself, so that we have everything in the same bucket. Because while Zoho CRM, I'm aware of it, even though it's not being used in our firm, but otherwise, because I have an interest in systems, etc., I've been playing around with Zoho CRM. It has a lot of flexibility, but with the kind of flexibility that we need in the data architectures and the integration we need with the rest of our business processes, we believe, at least I believe right now, that it might be better off configuring some of those features inside of Zoho Creator than having them standalone in Zoho CRM and build those integrations and all that. Although Zoho CRM has a lot of integrations with various other Zoho products. Zoho Desk, as such, we do not really need, because that does not fit into our business model at all. But if Akhilesh, you guys want to talk anything more about Zoho CRM, then of course you can add your perspective as well.
Sure, Rajiv. We have integrations with CRM and all other Zoho products. So, one from Creator, it's possible to integrate with Desk or a CRM. It's just clicking for a configuration, and once the configuration is set, it's easy to transport data. So, Samaila here is asking, kindly tell me more on the location tracking in Zoho. So, we have been receiving a lot of questions on location tracking, on how it works from a business point of view.
So, yeah, from a business standpoint, I can tell you what we've done. The functionality that Zoho Creator offers is very simple. Whenever you are entering data into any form, you can enable location tracking, where essentially the app will add a field and give you the information about the location from where that entry has been made into the form. That is essentially what Zoho Creator does from you for you. What the way we have used it in our business context is, as I mentioned, uh, we have these field boys who've been kind of who are expected to take documents and move it from one place to another. And obviously, in the pandemic, it was a huge concern, a risk, as well as an operational nightmare to manage people moving around while a pandemic is going on, while borders are getting sealed and curfew is on, and so on and so forth. So the way it really helped us, apart from helping us in a business as usual mode, where we have control over what documents are going from one place to another. And the reason why location tracking is useful is because uh, nobody can put an entry of taking documents from a place or delivering documents to another place at which the person is not there, right? So that gives us foolproof control over our operations. That is business as usual utility. pandemic utility, of course, was additional because of the reasons that I just explained, and the fact that everything was under control because of the location tracking feature, right? So
Right.
you can again use it creatively for whatever business use case you may have. This was a very simplistic use case for us, not very core or vital to our operations, but in the given circumstances, it was quite a useful thing to have.
Right. We have Ganesh's question to Mr. Rajiv. Thanks for sharing the story. It was great. What are the challenges you faced initially when you decided to implement a low-code platform? Any limitations on the platform?
Uh, yeah, there was, I would say, from a limitation standpoint or from an architecture standpoint, I think one thing that I would love to have is Zoho Creator being able to integrate with some of the AI applications that we've built. I still remember, when I was doing the technical training on Zoho Creator, I think 90% of my questions were around AI, and I gave the team a real tough time. So they do have some AI functionalities which are rudimentary, which are already inbuilt into the Zoho Creator product. But in our case, of course, our data science initiatives are far more evolved. So that was a limitation that I personally felt. Although I don't think that will apply to most of the organizations. In fact, it does have some features which allow you to do to essentially build basic AI or ML models on top of the data that you have captured using the forms. So, in fact, that actually can be quite a benefit to people who may not have a battery of data scientists in their organization, and they just want to do some simple data science stuff. That simplistic sort of stuff can be done without using any code or any programming, or for that matter, even without any knowledge of data science and machine learning. So all those things are there, but we were looking for something more. So we still continue to run our legacy data science environment separately. As far as the core process and uh, workflow sort of features are concerned, there wasn't really anything limiting. We were earlier working on Orchestly, as I mentioned, and there, of course, we were not having the features of storing the kind of data that we had. So Creator was able to do that. We, of course, missed the Orchestly functionality, but those functionalities, I think, have now been incorporated into Zoho Creator in the form of Blueprint. So now, finally, we have best of both worlds, which we initially did not have about a year ago or so.
All right. We'll have one more question as a follow-up to the question on GDPR. Rajesh has a clarification. Uh, when companies start creating applications left, right, and center, how can the company be sure that it complies to all internal and external compliance policies?
Uh, Yes, so with regards to that, we do have a lot of restrictions. So we have access permissions for each employee, or you can put them into specific roles and then they absorb those specific permissions placed on those roles. We also have data sharing rules and domain restrictions that should help you manage and restrict who has access to what sort of data. Uh, that should primarily be capable of handling all this. But again, you can also decide who gets to access the data itself as a user.
Thank you, JD. I think that's about the questions we have. So we have one more question, and I think this will be the last. So how did Zoho allow people to upload resume on the Anand and Anand company website? I think Rajiv gave an answer to
Yeah,
that.
we've answered that.
Yeah, that's about it. So thank you for joining us. I hope it was informative and it served the purpose. So we'll be sending a recording to all of you who attended via mail in a couple of days time. So if you have any questions, you can write to us at hello@zohocreator.com. And if you have any other clarification, feel free to reach out. So we have come to the end of the session. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Akhilesh. Thanks, everybody.